Bang Tango. Great band.
Yeah, somebody's got to keep all your old glam washed up bands resuscitated, right?
Dude, that first Bang Tango album was a classic.
It's actually not. No one knew who they were, and they washed up into the mist of history because they were a fucking worthless glam band.
Really? So you're, because they never made it huge. They're this Mr. Underground death metal.
No, they were like Extreme and all those other bands that you like. They kind of put out 1 or 2 records, and no one noticed them, and they were like, "Okay, hang it up, we're done."
Dude, are you kidding? Extreme
All
got
of them.
huge.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they're still big, dude. Extreme is still they're still relevant for sure.
They were never relevant. Nobody on earth has mentioned the band Extreme except for you and Dustin Mitchell.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Exactly. Nothing to say.
What am I gonna do with you, man? You're impossible.
I'm possible.
Did you ever have you even listened to Extreme? Like Pornography?
No.
Or even the first album, the self-titled album? You never listened to it?
No, I haven't. Is that going to be like Racer X?
I would hope so. Did you liked Racer X, right?
Racer X wasn't bad.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of in that same. I would say like it's better produced than the Racer X albums.
Better produced.
It's more poppy, I guess, but it's also, I don't know. I mean, it's, dude, Nuno Bedcourt. You'll hear, maybe you won't hear people say Extreme, but people will quote, like any guitar player will talk about Nuno Bedcourt as one of the best out there. Just an amazing player. Even I bet if you even cornered some of your death metal dudes, they'd be like, "Fuck yeah, Nuno Bedcourt. He's amazing." But yeah, dude, you got to listen to Extreme. You can't claim you're into extreme music if you won't even listen to the band called Extreme.
But they're not extreme. That's the thing.
Extreme to me.
Well, yeah, but you're a glam poser.
I know. A glam poser.
Weren't they on The Decline of Western Civilization? Weren't they in that movie?
No. You're thinking of Odin's Hammer. Odin.
No, not Odin. But there was another band featured in The Decline of Western Civilization, and I thought it was Extreme.
No, that wasn't.
They were kind of just like a thrashy band, but they didn't look like a thrash band. They looked like kind of a glam band somewhat, or just like a rock band, but they were like a little fast. They had a redheaded dude. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
No. I mean, I don't think I've ever even seen Decline of Western Civilization.
You've seen that movie. You know the Chris Holmes part.
Well, yeah, everybody's seen that. But I don't think I've ever seen the actual movie, or maybe I did when I was like in junior high or high school. I don't remember it too much. I mean, from what I understand, what's her name, Priscilla, or the producer, was kind of taking the piss from the scene.
Kind of what?
Was taking the piss. Kind of treating it like a joke, which it kind of was. I mean, yeah, it didn't exactly paint the LA scene in a good light. No, Extreme wasn't in Decline, not at all. Okay, so you've heard Extreme. Have you ever seen the movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
I have not.
Why the fuck are we even talking?
Because I like better stuff than.
You've never seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Nope.
Oh my god.
Why was Extreme in that? Is that how they're good? Because they were in a movie with Keanu Reeves and the little guy from Lost Boys?
No, dude, well, I was trying to tell you that, I mean, they played a song in that. They weren't like.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you thinking of Lost Boys? Is it the band that has the guy with the long hair and the leopard pants and the saxophone?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Is that Extreme?
Yeah, that's Extreme.
That one from the Lost Boys. Okay, well that makes
that's
sense.
it. Yeah,
You would like that.
yeah, that was Extreme. That was Nato
I think it looks like Shawn Michaels from WWF. He's like playing a sax and singing. And
exactly.
there were like girls headbanging and shit, and they're like, yeah.
Precisely.
See, when you talk about metal, that's what I picture as like that scene in that movie and those people.
Right.
Because you like all those obscure bands that like.
It's exactly how it is. I don't know if I want to talk to you until you listen to Extreme. I almost tell you to stop the recording right now and just go pull up an Extreme album.
Well, that would be my assignment because you are mentally challenged, and that's the show. Mark Extreme Hansen over there, J.R. Torino, the Butcher here. We're extreme. We're mentally challenged. Mark
the
has
clueless Butcher.
Yeah, clueless Butcher. You're the guy who doesn't know half the bands I want to talk about on this show, so we keep talking about Kiss every week.
Oh, I know at least half of the bands.
Half of the bands, and then the ones I want to send you, you're like, no, I don't want to listen to that. It's not Extreme or Whitesnake. No.
Exactly.
Oh,
no, why can't you get into that? Why?
What?
I think maybe your label should sign a couple of melodic rock bands.
Maybe I should. That's the big thing these days is rock music. Have you looked over at Earache Records lately?
No.
They are just pumping it out left and right.
Really?
All kinds of rock bands.
Let me see.
Earache.com. That's Massive Wagons. In fact, Greta Von Fleet's probably the only new rock band that's not on Earache. The rest seem to be all on Earache.
Is it because they got acquired by, or did they acquire somebody? Let me see. Earache bands.
I remember they sold to somebody like Sony or something, but it's all still the same staff. But I don't think that has anything to do with what bands they pick. They still do death metal and stuff. They just kind of like are making a bigger deal of the rock scene right now, which is cool because goddamn, where have you been, rock and roll?
Okay,
like hip hop shit for like the last 30 years. It's like fuck.
Well, this is interesting. Okay, so the first thing that pulls up is a band called Black Star Riders.
Yep, Black Star Riders, Blackberry Smoke. They even have Buckcherry on their label, which is fucking funny because Buckcherry opened for Kiss on their reunion tour.
I'm not a fan of Buckcherry, but
yeah, me either. But I'm just saying, like they've got all these bands like Massive Wagons, Blackberry Smoke, Scarlet Rebels. There's like all this rock bands.
Yeah, that's kind of like that bluesy rock stuff, which is fine, which is cool.
You scroll all the way down T, and there's your first death metal band, and look who it is, Pete and Terrorizer.
What's Double R?
Like, what the fuck? Double R is like an old British band from like the 90s. Like in the 90s, Earache kind of veered off the rails a little bit. They got bored with metal, and you started to see industrial and like some kind of like not specifically rock, but there was just like alternative music, I guess would be the best thing. There was a band called Linnea 77 that were basically like rap rock, and everybody hated that band. And then what else was there? There was Dub War was one. There was another band called Polkas. There was one called Misery Loves Company. There were a bunch of bands they signed that were just like kind of this alternative 90s kind of sounding stuff, I guess we could say, like along the lines of Marilyn Manson or Limp Bizkit or that kind of thing. And they changed their logo from like the classic logo they've gone back to now, like the Thrasher skateboarding, which is where Thrasher magazine got their idea from, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was one way or the other. I think Thrasher copied Earache or Earache copied Thrasher. And the other funny thing is the Earache logo was drawn by Jeff Walker of Carcass, who also did the Napalm Death album cover.
Are they still on, is Carcass still on Earache?
Oh, no. They're on Nuclear Blast now. Don't forget, they did Swan Song basically to get out of their contract with Earache. And that's also one of your favorite albums. So,
great album. I mean, I can't deny it. It sounds like a Carcass album to me. That's.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Speaking of Carcass, what's your? Should we wrap up that show? So we saw Carcass.
Well, we both took away something magnificent from it, which was being sick as fuck for 3 weeks. I still have a little bit of phlegm from that. When was that show? December, like 13th?
Yeah. I felt a little rough the next day, but I'm over it. I
Oh
got
man,
over
I was like sick for like 2 weeks solid, like a solid 2 weeks
it.
of like sneezing, coughing, sore throat, like aches. I thought I had COVID, but it's some nasty upper respiratory thing. I was coughing up fucking alien phlegm for weeks.
Really?
Like, you didn't have that? I started to lose my voice, everything. Like,
Oh no,
the only thing I
no man.
didn't do was puke. I was like, man, I thought that was coming next, but like, geez.
No, it
But
was a little
anyway,
rough, like a couple days after, but I don't know. You got to work on your immune system there.
I have a good immune system. That's the
No,
thing.
you
It's like,
don't.
I got every shot, like every updated shot. It's like, well, what the fuck? I still got nailed hard by that. Must have been you being in the car
Huh?
with you, got sick. I don't know. Maybe like,
I'm a super spreader. Yeah. Well, no,
you probably are.
I only got the one shot. I got J&J. I think I'm actually considered unvaxxed because of it.
You're unneutered.
Unneutered.
You got me pregnant with all of your filth that you were breathing while we were in the car.
I'm a pureblood.
And that was funny because we were in the back too. Like we were standing mostly in the back for the show. The left side, the doors were open for the smokers. I
Hmm.
thought, man, I'm not in the crowd, but god damn, I got it, but good. But I could not believe how many people were at that show. I thought it'd be like,
It was damn near sold out. Yeah.
that's crazy because you think about it, all of this in context. Like I think about well, first of all, only like a few weeks before I saw Napalm Death across the street from the venue we were at, that little club, the Metro, and it wasn't
Metro.
even full, and it was not. That's not a big venue, and that wasn't even full. It was like
But
a couple handfuls of people.
that was on a weeknight too.
I guess so. Yeah, that's true.
That kind of makes a difference.
But Napalm Death didn't typically draw that kind of crowd. Depends on who they come with. That's Salt Lake for you. It's like any band that I like that's going to be a kick-ass band like Napalm or Carcass. If they come with another band that everybody's into, like the last time I went to Napalm, it was crowded as fuck. It was at a smaller club, Holy Cow,
Yeah.
Urban Lounge. It was the Holy Cow, it became Urban Lounge. That's where I saw Angel Corpse too, with Cannibal Corpse and System of a Down.
Oh wow.
But they played with the Melvins, and the Melvins is always like a huge band here in Utah. I don't know why, but they are.
Yeah, people love the Melvins. They're not bad. I mean, I can't really think of any of their stuff off the top. But what I have heard of the Melvins, it wasn't
Yeah, they're okay. I mean, if you like that
well,
kind of
kind of sludgy.
sludgy, heavy stuff, I mean, up to a point. After a while, it kind of just turned into rock too. Like I lost interest. But actually, it's funny because there was a time that the Melvins played at the Speedway Cafe, and they came down to the radio station with Brad Barker, the guy who was on the air before me when I was on
Mhm.
KRCL.
Yeah.
So it was Brad Collins of Braunch used to be on before me, then he quit, then it was Brad Barker, then it was Brad Collins again. But for a while, Barker he was really into Sub Pop, so he had the Melvins down after that show, and they were hanging out in the studio. And I think Dale, the guitarist, was looking through all my CDs because I was about to go on the air, and they were talking about Earache and stuff. And that was just when Bolt Thrower had just like come out, like all those bands were just brand new, and we were all talking about grindcore. And I started playing Melvins on my show after that night because I'd never heard them. But I
Hmm.
thought they were pretty good. They had a nice sludgy, heavy thing, and they're big Kiss fans too.
Oh yeah.
That was a funny
Yeah.
aside though. But yeah, that Carcass show was but also, and again, like I was just saying, it's because Napalm came with the Melvins that I'd seen them before, and it wasn't as big of a crowd. And this time it wasn't either. But
Who did
Carcass, they were here with who? Obituary, but more popular here in Salt Lake was Amon Amarth because everybody here is
Oh yeah.
into the popular Norwegian and Swedish metal and stuff. So that's what went over big here was Amon Amarth, and I've never heard them.
Yeah, I liked them.
And for
They
that
were good.
matter, Cattle Decapitation, all those years of me selling their shit in my or in my record store,
Uh-huh.
I never listened to them. I just assumed because they were on Metal Blade and their covers were gory that they were like a Cannibal Corpse knockoff. But I guess that's not at all what they are.
No, they're pretty original.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear they kind of sounded like like a combination of like a Manowar, like Cannibal Corpse, and like Into Eternity, or one of those melodic band like Nevermore or something. Like one of those thrashy, heavy but melodic bands. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, they kind of have like it's almost like a extreme death metal and yeah, there's a sort of melodic aspect to it. Like I wouldn't call it clean vocals, but there's like he has this sort of melodic scream that he can kind of sing notes on.
Yeah, when we got in, they were already starting. Had already started, and I kept after like a couple of songs. You remember? I just looked at you. I'm like, "Who the fuck is this? What band is this?" And you were like, "It's Cattle." I'm like, "What? Really?" Because I was expecting
Yeah,
like, Cannibal Corpse, like rah, 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 rah. I'm like, I was like, shit, that's doesn't match their album covers. Their sound. It really didn't to me.
yeah. Um, their earlier albums might be a little more like straight death metal, but um, usually I think by their second album they started exploring more of that sort of kind of I don't want to call it clean singing, but it's like melodic vocals,
Yeah, not at
But
all.
they're
What I
really
was.
tech though. They're technical as shit. They're kind of in the tech death sort of thing, but they do have like a unique twist on it, and they're kind of similar to Carcass. Their whole vibe was like sort of a kind of vegan
Oh
sort
yeah,
of.
totally.
That
Um,
was kind of thing, but socio political sort of bent versus just gore lyrics.
it's funny too because when I think about them, that's when I had the Abyss, my CD shop here, and every time I think of Cattle Decap, the thing that comes to my mind is the picture of that album cover that came out when I had my shop, which is of the cow. You're looking at it from the rear, and it's turning around looking at you, but you can see its ass, and there's a giant pile of human remains coming out of its asshole, like it's shitting out a person that it just ate.
Human Newer is the album.
See, yeah, yeah, and then it makes you think of Cannibal Corpse because it's so vulgar and gory.
Mm.
And I had that poster in my bathroom at the Abyss in my record shop there. And the funny thing about that is, I remember one time. Are you familiar with the band called Anal Blast?
Yeah.
Okay, Anal Blast. For those not initiated, they're kind of like just a noisy, sloppy, kind of grindcore-ish, gorecore band that sings about porn and shit, basically, and death. And
Yeah.
they're like not the greatest band in the world, but their singer Don Decker, unfortunately, has died now. But he was when they came here, they were hanging out in my shop. And Don Decker is a very, very, very large, obese man, really
Yeah.
big guy. He used my bathroom. I'm like, good Lord, that toilet is tiny compared to this guy. He goes in the bathroom and then he's in there for like good part of an hour. I'm like, what the? Oh my God. I'm just like horrified of what's going on in there and the smell because it's a little shop, and you can smell
Oh yeah.
everything that goes on in there. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just think of that Humanure poster was in there. Like it's looking right at you on the door while you're sitting on the can in there. And like, it was just a funny story because he went in there and just took this big shit. And you picture this guy on stage doing these vocals later that night. Like, it was so funny and he had these big jowls, and I'm not bagging on him because he was fat. I mean, he was a cool
Mm.
guy, super nice guy, totally a sweet guy. Like he gave me a bunch of CDs. We traded stuff. He was super nice about everything, and really sad that he died. I can't remember what he died from. And actually, he lost a shit ton of that weight too, if I remember, like right before he died. Maybe it was some kind of shock to his system, but it was
Yeah.
just kind of a funny story because the singer from Anal Blast is a huge guy and he went and shit in my bathroom. And I just think of that Humanure poster. And that's kind of what I was thinking of when we were there that night. Like totally unrelated band. But it was just, one of the funny things of having a record store, and the bands that come through. But anyway, yeah, I was kind
Yeah.
of like not super into their sound. I mean, they were good and everything, but Obituary was really on point. Like, what did you think of Obituary? I thought they were really
Oh,
good live.
there. That's the second time I've seen an Obituary. Probably in the last few years because they toured with Cannibal, like 4 years ago.
So I was
And
never big into Obituary. Like all those years I did my radio shear, I never really heard much of him, and that was my first on-air interview. Was Trevor Paris, the guitarist.
really,
It was arranged through Roadrunner, and he called the station one day. I got to get up early to go down there because he's in Florida. Of course, I'm in Salt Lake, and it was a cool interview. I still have it taped somewhere. But yeah, it was. I winged my way through it because I was like, as you know me, I was totally into like anything brutal and dark out of like Norway and Sweden and the
Mhm.
UK and Liverpool, and I didn't really care about Florida metal, but yeah, they were really good live. I mean, I was like, they played
Oh
all
yeah,
their hits. They even played Circle of the Tyrants by Celtic Frost. Did you notice that?
I didn't know, but I know they were big fans. Like, do
That
the
they covered that on their second record, Cause of Death, which is arguably their biggest and most popular record. And I'm surprised they played it live. Why wouldn't you? Great song, and they do it really good. It was a really good set from them. I loved
they're
it. I loved the last song they did too. Don't Care is one of my favorites.
oh yeah, yeah, that one's amazing. No, they're just dude, they're just a solid, really fun like band, dude. They're
Yeah,
like
they're not bad.
they're almost like the Leonard Skinner of death metal,
See, I've
just
never
Southern
really got
boys.
into them just because I just never kind of, like I said, I bypass a lot of American stuff, and I bought their first record, Slowly We Rot, and I was like, it's all right.
Hmm.
Nothing really standing out on that one too much. They're all kind of the same, just kind of slow, mid-tempo-y stuff. But the second one, Cause of Death, was better. It was produced. I think that was a Morrisound record, if I'm not mistaken.
I think most of theirs were Morrisound. I think Slowly We Rot was Scott Burns.
Yeah, it might have been, but and I never really like follow them religiously. I got a few of their albums that I actually own and a few that I just got downloaded or whatever, or someone gave me, but it wasn't a bad band at all. It was cool to see them live. I'd never seen them live.
Yeah.
And Amon Amarth, I was kind of again, I was surprised by that because Amon Amarth I also thought was like a fast, thrashy kind of pseudo black metal band, but like Viking metal. So because Viking metal to me, what it was when it started is like black metal, but without all the corpse paint and without the hate
Mhm.
and the evil and all of that. It's just about Vikings. I thought that's what they were, and I was surprised to hear it. They sounded also like kind of like a Manowar-ish kind of heavy metal. I was like, what? This is not what I
Oh yeah.
expected at all. It was kind of like Bathory, Viking era Bathory, which is probably who they're totally influenced by, but meets kind of the
Sure.
Manowar kind of heavy metal ethos.
Kind of like a polished up, like a maybe not as raw sounding Bathory,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
that's a
Where it's
fair
like,
assumption. Like they had like the stage set with like the boat, the
yeah,
helmet, and all that. I thought it was a boat, but it's
just
actually a
production.
giant helmet.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big helmet.
It looked
No,
like a
that's a
boat for a
lot of
minute.
fun, man. And um,
And that's why we got sick from all those goddamn mouth breathing Amon Amarth fans that were there. Fucking zombies.
nah, dude,
Carcass fans wouldn't get us sick.
yeah, they would. I mean, you know,
Well,
you,
anyway, yeah, I was surprised. Amon Amarth was actually pretty good. The guy, the singer, like, he seemed like he was a really cool guy. They had a good set. It was classic heavy metal. Like, but even though I wasn't really expecting that.
yeah, and and it's because of them, we got to see, Obituary and Carcass. When it comes down to it, they had enough,
Well, I mean, Carcass makes their
respect
way
for the
here anyway.
underground.
Oh,
They
yeah, that's
do,
true.
but there's a certain amount, like Amon Amarth obviously knows where they came from, and you know, their riffs were heavily influenced probably by Carcass as well, and as well as Obituary. That groove, that mid tempo, which I love. That's kind of my favorite kind of death metal. Almost is when it's not always so fast, where they break it down and then there's that chugging groove. Love it.
Yeah, now, did you heard them before you saw them that night?
Probably just in passing, but I wasn't I didn't know what to expect. To be honest, I thought they'd be more like Enslaved.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was expecting is like something faster and more kind of black metal akin, but it really wasn't at all. But
Yeah,
it wasn't bad. It was pretty good too. I gotta say, I wouldn't buy their records. It's not my style, but it wasn't a bad show to see.
no, and the way I see it is like, you know, and you saw like a lot of like people who were probably just there for Amon Amarth, had never heard of Cattle Decapitation, Carcass, or Obituary. There's guys with their kids, because they wanted to do the Viking thing, right? Because that's all the rage. But they got to witness Carcass. You know what I mean? People that were not there for Carcass had to see him no matter what.
Well, I just
And I
edited
think that's a good thing, and I think they liked it. They get to
our
see, oh,
Hypocrisy
okay.
show where we talked about Hypocrisy a while ago. I just edited that. It's going to go up like probably tonight. But I was saying the same thing. That's how Salt Lake City works. Is I'm into these bands all the time, but no one knows about them here. When I played them on my radio show, no one really picked up on it. A few people did, but really, at the end of the day, when they come with a more popular band, like Hypocrisy came and opened for Cannibal Corpse, which I found completely offensive. I was like, get the fuck out of here. It should be the other way around. And same thing, like Hypocrisy ended up opening for Dimmu Borgir, but who he produced in his studio, Peter of Hypocrisy.
Were you at that show?
Oh yeah, of course, at Bricks.
That was at that was Children of Bottom.
Yeah, Children of Bottom, Vile.
Dimmu Borgir.
Vile, the death metal band Vile, and Hypocrisy and Dimmu.
I must have missed Vile. Shit.
Yeah, they were the first band.
I like Vile. I must have showed up late.
Yeah, because I remember busy smoking or something.
I remember Children of Bottom, and I remember Hypocrisy and Dimmu, of course. No, that was a great show.
Yeah, but I was just thought it was like, what the fuck? Hypocrisy's older than all these bands, and they produced two of those, Children and Dimmu, in his studio, and he's opening for them. But I'm guessing he doesn't really give a fuck, and he wisely probably assumed that it was going to get him more attention and more money on tour being with them than him headlining, and that's probably true. But that made everybody in Salt Lake suddenly became Hypocrisy fans because they saw him with those two bands. That's how it always goes.
So, I mean, and I guess my point would be just, hey man, however they get there, you know, just as long as they get there, you know. So if someone becomes a Carcass fan through Amon Amarth, or if someone becomes a Hypocrisy fan through Dimmu Borgir, then, hey, you know, better late than never. I mean, dude, my journey into extreme metal was fucking all over the place, dude. It took me a while. Took me a while to get into it, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of how it is, you know. It's I'm kind of a purist because that's how I got it, was by like going to underground record stores like Raunch and Heavy Metal Shop, you know, Grunts and Postures, all these other stores, and just digging through the bins looking for anything and just buying it.
Yeah.
But not everybody here is like that, but they get exposed to it through other means.
And you're one of those kind of few people that got the sound right away. Like, you know, I'm one of those people, I'm like, what, this is fucking noise.
No, that's because you were busy listening to Extreme 2 Porno Graffiti, you fucking poser.
Absolutely. And I still will listen to it and love it, but like I said,
you gotta give me some credit. I went back and listened to Racer X thinking it's just a silly glam record all these years, and you made me listen to it, and I was like, that's actually good. And they're not like a silly glam band. They're a good heavy metal band.
There was that one song, Heart of the Lion, that was written by Judas Priest.
Yeah, that was a throwaway Priest song that kind of never made it onto a record other than bonus tracks and shit. But
yeah.
Well, back on Carcass, you know, it was funny because Carcass was kind of like it was kind of a throwback for me, and I don't want to say that seeing them made me feel old, but it really did bring back this memory of when they were here in the 90s. And that I realized when you went out the door with me when we were going home. You said something to the effect of your radio show was, or The Abyss, my shop, was like 20 years ago. And I was like, what?
Yeah, you were like, oh, it's just a few years ago.
Because I still, in my head, I still feels like the radio show was just a few years ago. And that was 30 years ago now or more. And I'm like, fuck, where did the time go? Holy shit.
That's why
it hit me like a ton of bricks, man. I was like, wow, Carcass has been doing this forever. And that concert that we went to, they played at the Zephyr Club. Remember the Zephyr Club here in Salt Lake?
It's a crying shame. That was the best club.
Yeah, it was a good venue.
All around for like, I mean, you could go see Carcass one weekend, and then the next weekend you'd be watching like Al Di Meola, or, you know.
I saw D. Snider's tour there when he was not Twisted Sister. But remember D. Snider on tour? It was D. Snider band. But he played all the Twisted Sister songs. I saw him there, you know, and that was I saw Carcass with Pitch Shifter there. That was in the 90s when they were touring for Heartwork, actually. And that, you know, that famous story I've told it a couple of times now, where we went back to the radio station after that, and Carcass came along, and Pitch Shifter came along, and I made Jeff mad and that's a funny story too, which I should tell everybody here, is at this Carcass show, obviously they had meet and greet packages for all the bands, so there's no way I was going to bump into Jeff and be like, hey bro, what's up, you know? And not like Napalm Death. Like a few weeks ago, I just saw Shane walking to the bus. I'm like, hey Shane, what's up, man? Here's a Slaughterhouse Records shirt. Good show. Safe journeys, man. He's like, all right, cool, thanks. And You know, it didn't work that way with Carcass because there were like 1 billion people there and they had tour packages to meet the band and all this shit.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
they
go
got
to
it.
the shirt counter. First of all, there's these 2 guys on my way to the shirt counter. There's a dude dressed up like a hot dog, like a full body suit of a hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, why are you at a Carcass show dressed like a hot dog at all, let alone the meat product that you know is going to offend them? And there's a guy with him wearing one of those tuxedo T-shirts. I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, bro, Vikings. And you know me, I immediately went, fuck Vikings. And they're like, what? They looked horrified that I even dared to say fuck Vikings. I'm like, what? You got a problem with that? And I don't know these guys at all. They're like, yeah, what's wrong with Vikings? They said, hey, you know what? All black metalers and metalheads are anti-Christ. The Vikings didn't get it done, man. It's the Romans, this guy, the Italians. We killed Christ. And he looked at me like Beavis and Butthead for a minute. They were confused and they kind of started banging their head, going, yeah, that's right. That's right. And like, there you go, guys.
Oh.
The hot dog and the tuxedo man. They now know that it's the Romans who took out Christ, not the black metalers, not the Nazis, not the fucking Norwegians, not the heathens, the Vikings, nobody.
Well, they would have if they had the chance, don't you think? They weren't
Did
even
they have
aware
a
of it.
chance? But they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So if you believe in fairy tales like the Bible, then I'm here to tell you it was the Romans who took out Jesus, not the fucking black metal kids. But anyway, I went to the shirt counter and all their
They're not
shirts are
such a bad-
expensive as, huh?
Yeah, they were like $30 the shirts, weren't they?
Oh, $40, $40.
Yeah,
That
40.
was
Yeah.
the cheapest ones they had. Like the ones I really liked were like the hoodie was like what, 50, $60, and like the long sleeve was $60. And you know, I'm kind of pissed off, but at the same time, like we know, the state of rock music right now is in such shambles that that's the only way they can make their money. It's not even CDs are being sold that much. It's shirts that everybody wants. And all
Right.
the designs are sold out in my size, so I found a smaller, like a large, which I can work with, and a bright yellow shirt, which I then figured out when I got home has marijuana leaves all over the back of it. I'm like, God damn it, that's the second time it fucking happened, man.
You can just give it to me, Eddie. I'll wear it.
I went to the. Do
I
you
don't
wear a
even smoke
large?
pot, but I'd wear it.
Well, I wear
Yeah.
it too. I'd wear it, but I mean, I'm just kind of annoyed because I'm not the kind of guy that wears cannabis on my clothes because I don't smoke cannabis. But I bought a Brujeria shirt at the Napalm Death show when they had Brujeria with them, and
Well,
it had.
would you wear that? Yeah.
Well, I wear it around the house, but I mean, it's got pot leaves and whiskey bottles in the front. But when I saw it at the shirt counter, it looked like just machetes in like a jungle setting. Because I thought, yeah, because they're the Mexican jungle drug cartel, and so I bought the shirt because
Well,
it's got a
do
big
you,
skull on it. When I
well,
got home, it was
if it
pot
had
leaves.
machetes on it, should you not wear it because you're not using a machete every day? Well, you kind of do, huh? You work in meat products.
Well, the difference is I don't smoke pot and get high and all of that. Both shirts, I didn't know it had pot leaves on. I didn't look close enough. Well, anyways, so the girl at the shirt counter, I'm like, tell Jeff I love him. And she's like, what? And I said, you're with Carcass, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, tell Jeff Walker that I'm sorry and I love him. She's like, what do you mean? So I told her the whole story about how I brought Carcass to the radio station back in the 90s on the Heartwork tour.
Mm-hmm.
Gave Jeff a bunch of shit for the band not playing anything from their first 2 albums, which they again did the same thing this time, if you didn't notice. I think the set list, according to what I saw online, they played Exhumed to Consume, which is from the second record, Symphonies of Sickness, but I don't remember hearing that. I think the oldest song they played was Genital Grinder, which is the opening instrumental kind of riffy song on the first album, and then it went into a newer song, and they played some necroticism stuff, which I totally recognize.
Yeah.
So I don't remember hearing anything from the second record. But anyway, I told the girl, I said, yeah, I gave Jeff a bunch of shit way back when they were here for Heartwork, and it was at the radio station. He'll probably remember what it is. I took him down to the radio station. I gave him a bunch of shit. We were with Pitch Shifter, and I just felt really bad about it all these years. And she's like, oh, that's a funny story. That's kind of funny. I'll tell him you said that. He'll like that. And I guess he heard it by now. I don't know. We'll see. But the next time they come through, I'll be like, hey, Jeff.
If not, it's just here's JR burning every bridge if we ever want to do interviews.
Hey, I was in my early 20s back then. I tried the Mend bridge this time. Come on, man. So anyways, Carcass Live.
I guess I won't
Carcass
be getting
Live.
bedcord anytime soon.
I didn't bag on him. But I will. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, Carcass Live, they were really good. Bill Steer does not miss a trick. He's a great guitarist. Like, he's such a talented guitarist. And like, Carcass is kind of what he was meant to do, even though they'll never probably be like super popular like Whitesnake or all these other bands of guitar virtuoso dudes that you're into. But he really is. They're a great band. Like they're so unique. Their lyrical approach, like their whole visual thing, like the little slideshow they had going on there, like
Oh
the
yeah, I love their stage show. It was really good.
how everything is forensic, but it like ties into their lyrics, like even outside of the forensics thing, like gore and all that. It's just so clever, and they're just such a good band.
They look like they were having a lot of fun too. That's what another thing. Like Jeff Walker is just he's actually it's funny to watch him play because okay they're playing this kind of grinding death metal, but he looks like he belongs in the 70s. The way he plays and the way he just dresses, he looks like he could be in
Well, he
Molly
was just wearing
Hatchet.
like a Carcass shirt, and they did have those blue sleeve baseball jerseys. That was a big '70s thing. I had a bunch of those when I was a kid in the
Yeah.
'70s. But yeah, it's
And he had like bell bottoms and like just the Les Paul completely. He's like just classic rock look almost. But
he
playing
did
this,
kind of have that look. It's funny because if you look back at old pictures of Carcass, they're all like really skinny young guys because they're all vegetarian. They all wear Chuck Taylors. You know, they all wear like death metal shirts. And Jeff Walker used to have really big, long dreadlocks. They were like your classic UK kind of hippie grindcore band.
yeah.
And then Jeff Walker used to be in the band before Carcass called the Electro Hippies, which was exactly that, a UK punk grindcore hardcore band. And they weren't really super heavy, but they were kind of leaning that way. And then he formed Carcass, and Bill, of course, was in Napalm Death at the time, and they
Actually, I
started
didn't mean.
playing.
I was actually not thinking about Jeff Walker. I was thinking about the guitarist. Like why
Oh,
can't I
Bill
think?
Steer?
Steer. Yeah, he's the one that looks super 70s.
Well, Jeff Walker kind of looks a little dated now too. That's the funny thing. That's what I'm saying is like, you feel like, wow, man, they've been doing this all this time. And like, how long was it since I last saw them on the Heartwork tour? That was in the '90s, and they're back. They weren't doing it all that time because they were gone for a while. But and then I saw some people I knew that used to listen to my radio show, like some American Native dudes, like creeping around in the back, But really, I didn't know anyone else there. Like there were so many people. I maybe recognized two people there other than you that whole night in the audience, and I was just like, who are these people, man? This is a whole new scene.
Well,
It's like I'm nothing here. I'm a relic. Like nobody knows me anymore. It's weird. Usually at a show, everybody's like, hey, 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 what's up? Hey, what's up? And
I ran
this time,
into there was a local. Do you remember a local band called Davidian?
I've heard the name.
They were kind of like a local thrash band, but they're two guitar players. I think one of their guitar players is in Category 5 now. So Category 5 is recording another album, and Dustin was there. But I
Oh,
ran
was
into
he?
the guitar player, and he's like, "Dude, I'm so glad I ran into you." He's like, Cat 5 is recording an album, and I guess they're having the original singer and then the newest singer. I forget his name too. Like I'm bad with names right now. And so they're bringing their old singer back for one track, and then they actually are gonna have me play a solo on it. So go through all the guitar players of Cat 5. So Curtis will play one solo, then the Davidian guy will play another solo, and I guess I got the last solo. So I'll be doing a solo for Category 5 here in shortly.
Yeah, baby. Back in the old.
Get my chops back up.
Yeah, I saw Curtis a while ago when I did that interview for the local music DVD documentary they were doing. I saw Curtis there.
Yeah,
Like,
but
yeah,
I didn't see Dustin at the show, but he was there. Yeah, it would have been cool to run into him.
why
And it
don't
was
you
cool to
call him?
run
Don't
into
you
these
have
other
his
guys.
number?
I don't know if I have his number. I mean, I could just message him. I don't
Yeah.
know what I'd say. I mean, I could call him, but I
Well,
don't.
didn't you guys used to be friends? I mean, just message and be like, "What's up?"
Yeah, we're still friends.
Well, I mean, you act like he's this alien now that you can't talk to.
No, you do. You're the one
Me?
who's like, Dustin doesn't talk to me anymore.
You're like, oh, I don't know. What would I say
Well,
to him?
no,
I know what I'd say. I'd say whatever the fuck. But he wasn't like my best friend. I just bumped into him, and he came to my shop when I had the
so,
store. And
but I'm one of those people that's like, well, I don't have any reason to call him. You know, not that I wouldn't love to talk to him.
Some
It's
good
just,
friends.
but that's the kind of person I am. I mean, just like I'm the type of person that'll be friends with you and won't talk to you for like 2 years, and then we can just pick up where we left off, like we did.
Yeah, no shit. Like, I'm trying to get you to do this fucking show. It's like, oh yeah, I'm busy. Give me about a year and I'll be ready. Oh, okay.
I'll never be ready, dude. I think this is it.
No, I know you were born not ready.
Yeah, not ready is my middle name. So there's the Carcass album.
I did buy the Carcass CD, Torn Arteries, at the show, and you'd already let me hear it, but I bought it at the show, and I was listening to it in the car, and it's pretty good. It's not a bad record. You know, it is like Heartwork, but it's a little bit more rough than Heartwork. It's got some different kind of textures to it that I like. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's a pretty big departure from the one right before it, which was Surgical Still.
Yeah, it kind of is, because it's less like overly produced and less fast thrashy technical, but it's still got those elements, but it's like a little more like a little bit more rougher, a little bit more raw, like a little bit more soul to it, like of their old stuff.
Groovier. It's got some grooves.
But the heavy vocals are on it again. Like Bill Steer's vocals are kind of prevalent again, whereas that has not been the case for a couple of albums now, since before Heartwork. Like, he just wasn't present vocally, but now he is again. So that's cool.
And Cannibal put out a new album, which is excellent. You know,
Did
I know you're not. Yeah. It's the new one with Earache Records on guitar.
So I thought their last one came out like a long time ago, like 2017 or something, didn't it?
No. So their last one is called Violence Unimagined, and the one before that was Red Before Black, I believe. And that one came out, and I'm gonna look it up.
So have you heard the new one?
Oh yeah, I love it.
How good is it?
It's just a solid Cannibal Corpse album. I mean, if you like Cannibal Corpse, you'll like it, you know. And I think you should like Cannibal Corpse. I just think you haven't really revisited them, you know, with like fresh ears, you know, with a little more objectivity, because I know you weren't really into them because of the fans surrounding them. You got kind of sick.
Well, I mean, that was like back in the days of my radio show in the 90s. I mean, I let it get to you, just like with like a lot of bands, but you know, going back, like I need to do that next. That's my next thing. All right, my assignment, your assignment is going to be to listen to more of the black metal and the other death metal shit that I send you, or at least I suggest to you, and I'll go back and listen to some more Cannibal.
Okay.
Because I know that I gave them the short end of the stick. I totally admit that, because of every week, every phone call, I get multiple phone calls a night. It was either Slayer Cannibal, Slayer Cannibal, Slayer Cannibal. It drove me nuts, because I'm like, my main mission was to turn people on to new music, just like getting disgusted by seeing Hypocrisy as the opening band for Dim Bourgeois. I wanted people to get into bands like Hypocrisy, or you know, all these other bands that no one's ever heard of, but yet they couldn't get past the popular stuff that they already knew about before they heard me. That was the thing that drove me nuts. And that's again probably why I'm always anti-America when it comes to the metal scene, because that's kind of how Americans are. It's just whatever is popular and easy to get at the nearest record store, versus going out to an underground place and supporting the underground and looking through the bins and just taking a chance, you know, because the guy in the back of the band photo has a Beherit shirt. So you're like, oh, I'm going to try this out. So that's me.
Well, the thing is like that. I mean, those days are gone, dude. Like, nobody's looking through bins anymore.
I don't know if I would say that, because Brad from Ranch came to my restaurant the other day and said people are starting to buy CDs again. So I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, if you want to put some shit down. So I told you the CD might be making a comeback. I don't know how much that's going to be. I mean, this is just a local store here, but I don't know. You never know anymore, man. But yeah, I think for the most part, you're probably right. But it seems like it's going to be what it's going to be. Like, if people want music, they're going to buy it. And I was talking to this kid at work the other day. We were talking about metal. He's the guy that likes the slam stuff. He actually told me that Cannibal had a new record too, but he was just saying he'll go to shows and buy a hoodie, but he'll also buy the CD and never listen to it. He just wants to buy it to support the band and kind of have it.
Yeah, and I think that's actually, believe it or not, like one of my New Year's goals is, you know, one, I've got to somehow find a way to quadruple my income, but I'm going to start buying like CDs, and kind of that same thing. I'll probably never open it because I don't have a reason to. I can listen to it online. But just to have that physical product, that artifact.
Are you rummaging through something again? What is all that noise?
Just shifting.
Oh, you're shitting while we're talking?
Shifting.
You're a pitch shifter or a pitch shitter?
I'm pinch hitter.
So yeah, it's about CDs. I mean, it's funny because I have been lately, like my wintertime music I like is like the really dark, like industrial stuff, like Godflesh, Pitch Shifter, like Skin Chamber, all those bands. Like it just reminds me of like the Birmingham, like the really weird, like multi-side Terminal Cheesecake, all these oddball bands that were like doing industrial at that time too. But I also love like all the old grindcore, like Napalm Death, Electro Hippies, Amoebics, Axe Grinder. Like for some reason that resonates for me in winter, like the dark, dingy days of winter.
That's funny.
And so I'm listening to that stuff. Huh?
I was gonna say my winter listening habits have gotten are almost the exact opposite.
Well, yeah, most people want like happy stuff in the winter because they're in a depressive setting. I'm the exact opposite. I want more depression, more gloom. Like that's what it's like, because if you think of Birmingham, and that's when I discovered that music was towards the fall. Every year I get into new music, it's usually fall, autumn, and then going into winter, and just reminds me of the gray skies outside. It always just like kind of hits me right. Like I've been putting on CDs. I own like actual CDs on my computer and putting that on my phone, or I'll take the CD in the car, but I'm actually putting them on the phone. I'm listening to shit at work and really enjoying it, and listening, not even Pandora anymore. I haven't listened to Pandora in a while. I've been listening to all these old records on my phone at work, and it's just shit from like 1992, just compilations of like noise bands and like grindcore bands and old hardcore, or even some kind of dub shit, like just dancey stuff. It's just a weird eclectic mix, but it's just like there's so much good music. It's still. I hate to see that go away. I hope that's.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I think about it a lot. There's almost too much good music out there. I think that's actually the bigger problem with the internet. Yeah, there's a lot of shitty music out there, but it's almost like you got too many options.
Well, I don't know. I know what you mean. But there's a lot of bands, but they all tend to sound the same. But we find ourselves going back to the classics. Like I know you're probably like me, still go back to. I'm gonna guess you always go back to Dream Theater, Whitesnake, Extreme, all those bands that you love, and just like I'm always listening to like all odd bands from the UK that nobody really knows about, like Terminal Cheesecake, Sonic Violence, Axe Grinder, Prophecy of Doom, and of course Napalm Death, Carcass, but they're old shit, not their newer shit.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Godflesh, like I can't get enough Godflesh and Pitch Shifter right now.
I have to admit, I'm not too familiar with either of those bands, because they were kind of in the 90s, and in the 90s I was pretty much hair metal and prog. But to be honest, like it's funny you mentioned Dream Theater. Like that's a band I have like unconditional love for, because they sort of changed the course of music for me. When grunge came out, they were the alternative to that. But I haven't listened to Dream Theater in years. Like I'll check out their new releases, give them a spin, and then.
Don't they have something new out too, or some new project or something, or?
Oh, they've always got like these projects and stuff.
I thought they had an actual new album under Dream Theater. I thought.
Oh, they did. Like it was in I think it was 2020 was their last album. And it's good, but it's like I listened to it once and then I don't know why, like that sound, like I don't even want to say anything, like I hate even saying anything bad. I'm not actually saying anything bad. It's excellent. Just for whatever reason, it's not resonating with me as much anymore. So, maybe that'll change. But I'll always give them credit for completely just blowing the musical doors wide open for me, and I even credit them for getting into extreme metal, really, because they were the ones that were just like, made me want to see like just how far like things can get pushed, like from a instrumental standpoint. And that's where if you're a metalhead, you want to see like how far musicianship can go within that genre, you're going to end up in death metal. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's the end of the road, honestly. It's extreme death metal
You know, I
because
was,
they're the ones that are pushing the technical and compositional boundaries, you know.
and yeah, that's, I think so. I mean, there's some stuff like Nile and Origin. It's just so fucking fast, so many notes,
Crazy, yeah.
so technical, and like it's just insane to think they're doing it as heavy as they can, as fast as they can, yet getting good production. It's like, how the fuck, you know? It's like,
Yeah. And
see,
there's
and at that point I get off the bus because I'm like, yeah, that stuff's not really for me. And some of it's okay, but yeah, I'm
yeah,
not like a musician's musician that I appreciate that. I can up to a point, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's funny that you say that also because I kind of went retro a little bit and I dug up Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force, the Marching Out record.
What a great album, dude. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, it's a great album. And that's another one that I really love in the wintertime because that's when I discovered it. And I remember when I discovered that, I borrowed that from a friend of mine. When I moved to Salt Lake, it was 1985, and I had these two friends. One, they were both in the metal. One guy like Judas Priest, Rainbow, and Richie Blackmore, and all the stuff kind of like he was more like your taste of metal. And the other guy, like anything like experimental and extreme, like he was into like a Metal Blade, like any Metal Blade band, like all these off the wall weird bands no one had heard of, as well as like Iron Maiden and stuff.
Oh,
We
yeah.
used to go to his house and play D&D. And I
Mm.
remember just listening to Black Sabbath, Born Again, and all these records, and Iron Maiden, and then we listened to Yngwie Malmsteen. I'm like, this record's fucking awesome. Such a great record. It's just so cool. It's got that feel of like the swords and sorcery, like
Oh
metal.
yeah, really, really medieval. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's such a good record. It's so good. And like, just listen to it over and over. And I was in the kitchen the other night at work because we didn't have a cook. So I ended up having to be in the kitchen. I had that record blasting back there, and all these young kids that work at the restaurant kept walking through. They're like kind of trying to be funny because they're like, "What?" Because the
Hmm.
vocals are like that. It's
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Mark Soto, or what's his name? Jeff Scott Soto.
Jeff Scott Soto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're making fun of it because to them that's cliche metal. Like the guy go, "Wow," you know.
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, fuck you guys. This is a fucking. If you stopped and listened to this record, if you want to hear metal, this is it. This is the ultimate heavy metal record
Well,
right here.
well,
One of
and the fact that it came out in like '84,
Yeah, it was like
like
84, 85 or
and
something,
it's still like the
and there's
sonics
nobody known in that
still
band.
holds
Like,
up.
even though it's named after Yngwie, he was kind of a nobody too to the average person.
Hmm.
If you knew Alcatraz and Rainbow, you knew Yngwie, but if you didn't, who the fuck is this guy? You couldn't even pronounce his name if you didn't know. Such a
Hmm.
good record, so good, and that reminded me of Amon Amarth too, because I'm like, maybe that's kind of where they got some of their influence too, is that kind of heavy metal.
Speaking of like old Metal Blade, like I think I talked about it before, but I really think you dig like the early Fates Warning albums.
Well, I used to have
Particularly,
all of those.
yeah, like Awaken the Guardian and Spectre Within.
I
Those
have
are
a
like just,
Guardian. I like that. I never got Spectre Within, but I told you we talked about on another show. I had Night on Brocken.
oh yeah, yeah.
It was okay. It was pretty good. It was just at the time I was getting into grindcore, so I kind of didn't care. But I had the original cover of it, and I got rid of it like a fucking fool. And it was like this original painting that I've never seen since.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
that's worth a lot actually.
Oh
If you,
yeah, I'm kicking myself for that one. That was bad, and I
but
should
like I
have kept
mean
it.
that's just like really like it's got this really dark kind of it's sort of gloomy,
Yeah, they have
those
a
albums.
gloomy, dreamy kind of fantasy, kind of heavy metal thing
Mhm.
going on, and
Yeah, yeah, those
and
two are
they're
really
good. They're melodic though. They're a lot more melodic, but where they're melodic, Yngwie Malmsteen just has this like this heavy metal punch that you were already
Mhm.
into, but it was like that. It's what you thought metal should be. It was singing about swords and sorcerers and knights and like
Mhm.
Vikings and like disciples of hell and like such a good album.
Yeah,
So good. Like how that never ended up in a Conan the Barbarian movie, I'll never know. It was such a great record.
yeah. I don't know
Remember
why
the
like it is kind of interesting like how metal and fantasy like fits so well, but you rarely see it used uh, in cinema. I mean, maybe that's changing a little bit, but you're like, man, why aren't they using like
Yeah, and they did the movie Legend. Remember that one? That was probably the biggest swords and sorcery movies we had up until like Lord of the Rings got redone. But they had Yes in there, wasn't it? Or
That
at
was
least the singer.
John Anderson. I actually like that soundtrack. It was a
Yeah,
good
it's
sound.
more of like a new age music on that one though, like Love by the Sun.
Legends can be. Yep.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, and someone it was my metal buddy I told you about that liked Yngwie Malmsteen. I think he was the one that told me that was the singer from Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, really? I guess it sounds like him, but yeah, it's like new age music, not heavy or rock at all, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I guess maybe the Dune soundtrack is not really. There's a little bit of metal element to it, but it's
Not really. It is Toto, but here's a funny story there. Speaking of industrial metal, there's a band called Red Harvest who are like huge in the Godflesh. Very inspired by Godflesh. They're an industrial metal band, and they have a song called War Themes on one of their albums, which features music from the soundtrack of Dune, the movie, the one from 1984.
so they sampled it.
Yeah, it's like, and it's I remember in the movie it was like this really epic guitar riff, but with like these chorus vocals over it. It's almost like Therion, but Therion didn't exist yet back then. It was like this this triumphant like battle music. It was like choir singing and guitar chords, these power chords.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I saw that in the movie. I thought that's cool. That's cool music. But they put it in their record, you know. And there was a few other elements of the Dune soundtrack in there as well. But yeah, funny how that works. And that was on my Godflesh Pandora station actually. Red Harvest pops up. They're kind of I forget where they're from. I think they're from Norway actually.
So I might have to check out like that's another one, even almost more so than black metal is one I can't get into is industrial.
Well, you got to keep in mind that the word industrial is just like saying, yeah, metal, check out some metal. Like what metal? Like Iron Maiden, Cannibal Corpse, Napalm Death? Like what are you talking about? Like anything.
Right.
It could be
It's
anything.
kind of a broad.
Same with industrial. Industrial is like it could be Godflesh, it could be Skinny Puppy, it could be VNV Nation, which is like really synth poppy German sassy vocals over pop music. You know, anything is considered industrial these days. But when I say industrial, I'm talking about like Godflesh, Pit Shifter, Skinny Puppy, GGFH, bands like that, where it's kind of still
Ministry
rock music structured. Yeah, like Ministry, even though they're kind of more like rock and metal, but there is that element. And really, going beyond that, industrial used to be like experimental music and noise. It wasn't ever like a rock-based thing, but Godflesh kind of put it on the map as that.
Yeah. I just don't know, man.
Well, it's 11 o'clock. You got to go to bed before you turn into a pumpkin?
Probably.
I think we should do like a best of, or at least what we were listening to. Like, even if it wasn't from 2022, but I definitely got to say I'll put Immolation's new one on there.
Nice.
Carcass. I can't think of any other new records that we've listened to other than Decapitated, maybe, but I've been listening to a lot of like either underground black metal demos or just old shit, like we were saying on this show, like Godflesh, all that stuff. But
yeah, just kind of going back to the old reliables sometimes. All right, man.
Glad to see you're still alive. I thought you were sick as fuck, like I was. I can't believe you didn't get killed.
No, it didn't last long at all for some reason. So
yeah, mine was like 2 weeks and then some.
2 weeks.
2 weeks total recall.
Yeah. How long?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right, man. On that note.
On that note, stay extreme.
I will.